It's 4 o'clock in the morning. I don't sleep anymore, because while the moon rises and my city falls into darkness, I know this is when all the scum rear their ugly heads.
I'm the Joker, baby.
But that is why I am here, surrounded by shadows, striking fear into their very hearts. I am the city's protector. I am the hero this city needs. I am Batman. At least while I'm playing Arkham City anyway. Now in life, there's two paths you go down. Either you're a Spider-Man fan, or you're a Batman fan. And I'll be honest, while I'm a little bit more of a Spider-Man fan, even I have to admit the Arkham series is by far the best superhero trilogy ever made. I mean, prior to these games coming out, the last game which featured everyone's favourite millionaire orphan was Lego Batman. And while that game was okay, it didn't really scratch that Batman-themed itch. Fans wanted a much more comic-accurate game where you could easily break every single bone in a random criminal's body. You're definitely going to need to rob another bank to afford these medical bills. Thankfully though, in 2009, their prayers were answered when the big boys at Warner Bros. Gifted us with Batman Arkham Asylum, which was developed by a British studio called Rocksteady, taking up to 2 years to finish before it was released in North America on August 25th. 3 days before Europe and Australia, because fuck them apparently. The game, as you can probably tell, takes place in Arkham Asylum as the Joker seizes control of the facility, freeing all the inmates incarcerated there, meaning a main focus of this game is beating up the mentally ill. Upon its release, Arkham Asylum received absolutely insane reviews praising its narrative, atmospheric world design, revolutionary combat system, and its stealth, with Andy Robbins from Computer and Video Games stating it was a thinking man's stealth game. On top of that, the game was compared to other classic titles like BioShock, Tomb Raider, and Resident Evil, with many reviewers stating that Arkham Asylum was the best superhero game ever made. Well, that was until Rocksteady followed up with its sequel in late 2011, Batman Arkham City, which as of making this video is sitting at a Metacritic score of 94, making it the highest rated superhero game ever and tying with Skyrim for the best rated game that year. Clearly, Rocksteady knew they had a lot to live up to coming off the first game, expanding their workforce from a team of 40 to over 100 people, refining the combat, creating an even more compelling narrative, and expanding the world of Arkham City so much that Rocksteady employees would work well into the night, only to start at 8 AM the next day. However, judging by the review scores and how many copies this game sold, the scuffed sleeping pattern was probably worth it. Anyway, with the success of Arkham City, fans eagerly waited for the last installment in Rocksteady's Arkham trilogy, which would eventually come in 2015 with the release of Batman Arkham Knight, putting a definitive end to Rocksteady's version of Batman. However, in between that time, we did get another addition to the series in 2013, Batman Arkham Origins. Now what's important to take note of here is that Arkham Origins is a prequel to the Arkham series, not developed by Rocksteady, but rather WB Montreal, and was largely seen as a pretty mid game. Origins really didn't feel like a necessary inclusion to this franchise, only existing to cash in on Rocksteady's pre-existing formula without really doing anything to, improve upon it. In fairness, the story was still widely acclaimed, further exploring the relationship between Batman and the Joker while you fight off various assassins in Gotham City. But gameplay-wise, Origins just felt old and tired, doing very little to deviate from the previous two titles aside from adding in a multiplayer feature that nobody asked for and was incredibly poorly received, with the online servers unsurprisingly shutting down in 2016. Despite the criticism though, WB Montreal would go on to work on the DLC for Arkham Knight, Batgirl and Matter of Family, which was around an hour long and received a 6 out of 10 from IGN. Can't imagine they were too happy with that. Anyway, after the additional content for Arkham Knight was finished, everyone would start to wonder what was next for this game series, and while fans speculated, WB Montreal would quietly start development on a top secret project, while they'd battled leaks. Now take all this with a pinch of salt because the vast majority of this info comes from 4chan, which isn't exactly the most reliable source. But apparently, Warner Bros. Marketing material was leaked onto the site, suggesting that at E3 2019, they were going to announce a brand new DC game, featuring online multiplayer, loot, and team-focused gameplay. This caused almost everyone to think they were going to announce a live service Suicide Squad game similar to Destiny and Fallout 76, which I don't think anyone was happy about given the state of live service games. Unfortunately for Warner Bros. Though, that wasn't all of it, because then alleged concept art was leaked showcasing a potential Arkham Knight sequel that would follow Damian Wayne taking up the mantle of Batman. This sparked even more rumours and speculation, with everyone trying to figure out what the fuck Warner Bros. Was working on. Is it a Suicide Squad game? Is it an Arkham Knight sequel? Is it that rumoured Superman game? Or is it that rumoured Justice League game? Nobody knew, and fans desperately wanted answers. Then in 2020, at the DC fandom event, WB Montreal finally gave fans those answers when they revealed their newest multiplayer game, Gotham Knights. But first, Ad time. Excuse me mate, I'm trying to connect your Wi-Fi, but I'm having a bit of an issue. Yeah, it takes a minute, but as long as you're using ExpressVPN, you should be fine. Yeah, I'm not using a VPN. Do you have any idea how exposed you are right now? I mean, the shop seems pretty nice. No, you idiot. ExpressVPN protects you and all your data from falling into the wrong hands. Like right now, anyone using the shop's Wi-Fi can literally see whatever you're doing and can steal your passwords, credit card numbers, and worst of all, your memes. So, safe to say, without ExpressVPN, you're going to feel a little bit naked. Aside from all the lovely security benefits, I personally use ExpressVPN for its ability to change my virtual location in seconds, meaning I can watch shows and movies that aren't available in the UK. Like for example, if I were to open up Netflix and search for The Dark Knight, I wouldn't find anything, apart from maybe a weird knockoff version. But with just one click, I'm suddenly in Canada and have the entire Dark Knight trilogy right at my fingertips. So if any of that sounds good to you, just go to expressvpn.com/AlexWebb to get 3 months of ExpressVPN for completely free and ensure that you never feel exposed online ever again. Here's a t-shirt by the way. Now, initial reactions to this new game seem pretty positive for the most part, with the game's premise being that Batman is dead, and it's left up to the members of the Bat family to keep Gotham City from, well, burning down. It was definitely a promising idea, which combined with the multiplayer aspect had fan intrigue at an all-time high. The launch trailer presented a very interesting concept, people were hyped to finally play as Red Hood, and the following gameplay trailer actually looked good, despite some odd cape physics. But hey look, it's Mr. Freeze.
I mean, it's in the streets. God damn!
Plus it wouldn't be long before we could play the game for ourselves, as it had a planned release for 2021. Oh no. Via a tweet from the official Gotham Knights Twitter, it was revealed the game wouldn't launch until 2022 now, with a message stating, "We are giving the game more time to deliver the best possible experience for players. Thank you to our amazing fans for your tremendous support of Gotham Knights." Now sure, this did dampen fan expectations a little bit, but hey, at least nothing was cancelled. Fuck. Yeah, sorry to any PS4 or Xbox One players, because even though the game was supposed to be released on those systems, WB scrapped the idea without any real reason, aside from saying the decision was made to provide players with the best possible gameplay experience. So in other words, if you want to play the game on consoles, you'll need to get rid of your dusty old lash-in one and buy a brand new PlayStation 5 with your dad's credit card. Again, this certainly didn't help to keep fan interest high, but on the bright side, we got another gameplay demo, and if the last one was anything to go by, well then this one should be... What the fuck is this? Somehow, after around 21 months of further development, the gameplay now looked worse than the 2020 demo. The combat looked stiff and almost robotic at points, the traversal drew major backlash, especially Nightwing's Fortnite-inspired glider, and the graphics overall looked like a massive downgrade in comparison to Arkham Knight, a 7-year-old game. Red Hood seemed to get the worst treatment though, as for some reason WB Montreal decided it would be a good idea to swap out his regular guns for non-lethal ones, essentially taking away one of the many aspects which makes him a compelling character. Not to mention, he looks like this. Now at this point, it wasn't looking good for the game.
It's not looking good, bruv.
The poor reception seemed to have killed off any anticipation for it, and many said Gotham Knights desperately needed even more development time to not look like an iPhone game. But it was too late for that. A tie-in comic had already been announced at San Diego Comic-Con, and another delay wouldn't exactly go down well with Warner Bros. So on October 21st, 2022, WB Montreal finally launched the game. Now for those of you who bought the game on release for full price, you stupid bastard, you received the game filled with an ungodly amount of bugs, from visual glitches and performance issues to brain-dead enemy AI and even the occasional crash. Oddly enough, Gotham Knights was also locked at 30 frames per second, and struggled to even get above 25 on consoles, which was slightly strange considering both the PS5 and Xbox Series X could run games at a minimum of 60 FPS. Remember how the last gen version of this game was cancelled? The sheer variety of glitches wasn't Gotham Knights' only issue though, because many players were quick to point out how lifeless this open world felt, and when put side by side with Arkham Knight, the difference is mental. Although considering this is Gotham City, I can understand why people would prefer to lock themselves indoors rather than going outside and meeting the local psychopath. Unfortunately, the open world wasn't the only letdown here, because while WB Games made it super clear that Gotham Knights wasn't in any way connected to the Arkham series, a lot of players still expected the game to have a similar level of polish, which it definitely didn't. Sure, there's something to be said about managing fan expectations and how that probably hurt the game to begin with, but even if we forget about the Arkham games, this combat is still shit. See, despite the huge amount of criticism on the gameplay trailer, the combat here looks pretty much unchanged, feeling incredibly janky and somehow even more robotic, which is pretty jarring considering how seamlessly everything flowed together in the Arkham games. Like, even looking past the poor combat, WB Montreal got rid of all the Bat-themed gadgets in favour of these weird elemental powers, and the stealth here is severely watered down, a far cry from what the Arkham series had become known for.
Got a lock. He's right behind me.
Instead, Gotham Knights has way more in common with something like the Avengers game, having stilted combat, some really ugly costumes, a fucking gear system, and bullet sponge enemies. This makes the gameplay cycle unbearably repetitive, as it just comes down to you going outside and beating up multiple criminals in order to unlock slightly better gear, only to then go back outside the next day and run into a level 69 man-bat with a health bar the size of Belgium. On the bright side though, once you beat these guys, you can hopefully collect enough material to craft another beautiful costume. Actually, speaking of the Avengers game, allow me to put on my tinfoil hat for a second, because I have a little theory.
I just simultaneously whipped and nated!
So remember how Gotham Knights was originally supposed to launch in 2021, then mysteriously got delayed to 2022? Well, in between that time, the Avengers game was released, and was subsequently obliterated for its horrendous gear system, as well as prioritizing being a live service, making the game a grindy mess. Well, funnily enough, Gotham Knights also has a gear system, incredibly grindy gameplay, and if you look at these two games side by side, it's very clear that Gotham Knights was also meant to be a live service. However, WB must have seen the extremely negative reaction to the Avengers game and went straight into panic mode, delaying the game for a year and cutting the live service aspect completely, in a bid to appease the gaming gods, which unfortunately didn't really help.
I hate modern AAA gaming!
See, while Gotham Knights sold surprisingly well, becoming the second best-selling game that week in the UK before you know, Modern Warfare 2, it was still littered with awful review scores, to the point that even the biggest of Batman fans couldn't defend this mess. Everything came under fire: the repetitive gameplay, the poor traversal, the dumb detective mode, the awful stealth, and the gear was somehow even more hated. Story-wise, many fans were happy to finally see the Bat family get their time in the spotlight, as well as getting the chance to investigate the Court of Owls, a secret society who runs Gotham City from the shadows. The Court was heavily promoted in the trailers as the game's main antagonist, and they've been featured in some of the best modern Batman comics. So, as you can imagine, people were interested to see them in video game form, investigating them and piecing together more information about the Court, like who's a part of it, what they might want, and most importantly, who their leader is. So obviously, in the actual game, this doesn't go anywhere, and Gotham Knights ends with Batman getting revived by ninjas and then fucking stabbed. At the very least, co-op was fun, mainly because playing a bad game with your friends is better than playing a bad game by yourself. Now, in fairness, not all the reviews for Gotham Knights were so negative. I mean, I found this one from Gamers Heroes giving it a 95 rating, seeing it's up there with Elden Ring for Game of the Year contender. I'm going to assume they only played 2 games that year. However, clearly, the onslaught of negative reviews must have started affecting the sales figures, because by November it was reduced to 40% on Xbox, and then by 50% in December on Steam. The player count also took a massive hit, peaking at 23,000 players in October 2022, to then only 3,000 in December of the same year. And as of now, the game is sitting at around 300 concurrent players, whereas if we look at a game like Arkham Knight, it sits at 10 times that. Sure, WB worked tirelessly to patch the game post-launch, fixing a variety of issues and adding in a plethora of updates, but even that didn't really help, as 6 months later Kotaku released an article about the game titled "Gotham Knights 6 months later. Better, but still mid."
Shut the fuck up!
Honestly though, the game didn't really have much of a chance. WB explicitly said it wasn't in any way connected to the Arkhamverse, but it was coming from the same publisher responsible for those games, as well as WB Montreal previously developing an Arkham game themselves. Fans were obviously going to compare the two, and clearly it wasn't a fair fight. I suppose the only positive takeaway though is that Gotham Knights is completely disconnected from the Arkham series, meaning the legacy of those games hasn't been damaged by affiliation, and Rockstar's version of Batman will forever be remembered for how good the Arkham trilogy was. Oh no.